to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Good morning, marketers. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association, and of course, powered by WS Radio. My guest today, I've got Aaron Cuker, founder of Cuker Agency. And before we dive into the topic here, I got a couple announcements to get through. First of all, thanks for everyone for attending our mixer at Cutwater Spirits. We all had a really good time there. And don't forget to grab your ticket to the Website Development SIG, hosted by Rich Rudzinski. So the topic of the Website Development SIG is how to keep your CMS website from getting hacked. That is on Level 9 at Rooftop Bar in downtown San Diego. Address is 509 9th Avenue. And be sure to grab your tickets. The event is on the 28th. All right, so diving into the topic today, we're talking about growing your digital brand. Cuker is a branding agency, and they focus on digital marketing, PR, and all that good stuff. And today, our topic of discussion is growing your digital brand. And Aaron, I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about your background and give us a background to Cuker and everything you guys do.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Thanks for having me here this morning. I appreciate the time to get to talk about all the fun things that we're doing with digital marketing right now. So,
yeah, of course.
For my background, so I started before my career in marketing. I was a competitive swimmer. I swam at an elite level. At one point, I attended Olympic trials in 2000, and I mentioned that because that kind of gave me the foundation for success in my career in digital marketing, because it taught me how to work hard, taught me how to compete, taught me how to win.
And never quit.
And never quit, that's right. And the importance of once you're at the top of your game, you have to compete even harder to stay there. So actually through swimming and through those connections, I landed my first job in this business at GQ magazine in New York. And so this was in the early 2000s, and I was kind of operating at the height of fashion design in New York City. It was really inspiring.
Very cool.
But I was there in sort of this transformation of GQ to a more younger audience. And one of the things I was pushing and advocating was digital. And at that time, it's kind of early on, there was sort of slow adoption. And I felt I needed to be on the West Coast to really be on the forefront of this digital transition. And so I packed up and moved here to San Diego and made this my home. And I felt San Diego is really a great spot for balance of lifestyle and career opportunities, and more forward thinking here on the West Coast as far as digital goes. But in San Diego is sort of generally a hub for digital marketing as well. So I found my home here career-wise and life balance-wise as well.
Not to mention the beautiful weather.
That's right, yeah.
So tell us a little more about Cuker and everything you guys do.
Yeah, so we're a digital-first marketing agency. We do web design, web development, e-commerce, 360 marketing campaigns. A lot of what we do is we look for brands that have a good product and a good mission that we believe in, and we really dive in and become an extension of their team, and we help them to compete and win in their categories. So we're sort of looking for best-in-class products that want best-in-class marketing, and we go in, whether we're dealing with a large company, we're helping them compete and win, or a sort of small, medium company that's growing, we sort of give them Nike quality marketing that is more unique among their competition, and that helps them stand out and sort of win in their category.
Very cool. And that's the beauty of digital. It really levels the playing field for small brands, big brands, everything in between, you name it.
It does. It is sort of a great equalizer where a lot of the marketing channels, in the heyday of TV, there's sort of this barrier to entry for large-scale marketing.
Yeah, you had to have a giant budget if you wanted to get your skin in the game.
That's right. And with digital today, it's really leveled the playing field.
Yeah, strategy really trumps budget in a lot of ways.
It does. It does. But I have to say, I think be talking about this more, but there is more competition now, and as more attention's on digital, that's starting to shift a bit. So, so it is becoming harder to compete.
Yeah. So I'm interested to get your take. What are a few of your favorite brands these days?
Uh, I'm really a fan of big brands that like to take risks and put up big campaigns. So I'm just a big fan of what Nike's done recently with their equality campaign and partnering with Colin Kaepernick and sort of taking some of those risks and doing a big campaign around that. So and I'm always just a big fan of Nike in general because they have a great product, they have great marketing, and a great message, and they've continually reinvented themselves and adapted. So I'm a big fan of Nike. I also really like Patagonia. They do a great job of just storytelling. I mean, they've picked their lane and they've stuck to it, and built a great brand that has lasted generations now. And then I think finally a brand like Tesla that's coming in and just a big disruptor and sort of the way they're approaching marketing. And if you look at commercials that you see on TV, so many of them are automotive commercials, but you'll never see a TV commercial for Tesla, and yet they're coming in and they're really sort of breaking the mold of what we're used to for marketing from an automotive manufacturer. So those are just a few that I really enjoy to follow.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Patagonia is one of my favorites too. I think one of the coolest things about Patagonia, they've gotten to a point with their branding where if you buy Patagonia, you're not just buying a product. You're buying into a mindset, and you're buying into this spirit of environmentalism and preserving nature and all of its beauty.
That's right. Yeah.
I feel like very few brands can actually do that, and that's just kind of the elite status.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, I mean, you're so right that very few brands do that. I think that a lot more brands could do that, but very few brands do that. And a lot of the companies that we end up working with, especially the ones that have a great product, so many of them have a great story and they have a great ethos and they have a great mission. They're doing these great things, but they're not telling the world about it. And so what Patagonia's done is they're sharing everything. They're taking those stories, they're capturing them, and they're putting them out through digital channels, and that's truly the opportunity for brands today, is to take especially the ones doing great things in the world and with a great mission. I mean, your customers want to consume those stories. They want to get that information. So it's a lot of marketing today is getting those stories out.
Definitely. So I'm curious, what would you say are the most important elements to building a digital brand? Like say you're starting at the absolute ground level.
Yeah, again, in today's digital era, I think it's the story. As far as building a brand, it has to start with the story. I think that you have to have a high quality product and service offering as well. I mean, there's just no two ways around it. I mean, I think it was David Ogilvy that said the quickest way to fail is to do really good marketing for a really bad product. And so if your product and service isn't A+, then that's where you have to start first. But then from there, as you go to build a brand, figure out your story, figure out how do you want to tell that, and that really sets the tone for all of the sort of marketing work to follow.
Got it. Very cool. So how would you say like brand elements? I'm thinking in terms of digital, because I know we're seeing a lot of stuff about how like the digital landscape in marketing has just evolved like crazy over the 2010s. How would you say these branding elements have changed over the past decade, like getting into the nuts and bolts?
Yeah, there's just so many more channels, and it takes a small army these days, because you've got your website, you've got social, you've got search, you've got your email and your CRM, your customer list, and there's so many different facets to your marketing channels, to those customer touch points, to how they transact with you through digital, and all those things are sort of blended together now. So it takes and there's kind of, it seems like there's like 100 things, and if one thing's wrong, it just it ruins the experience. I mean, if one button's wrong on your website, if one statement is bad on social, I mean it's really, I mean, it's a big challenge for brands these days to have their arms around all these channels and be constantly sort of curating, monitoring, making sure they're perfect. But that's the game today. Is you have to put that focus and attention on it. You have to have a team working on that has experts in each of these areas, making sure that these things are addressed, and then that's who's winning. The brands that are effective at that.
Yeah, I think just going off what you said, I think a really interesting thing I've noticed in the past decade is the margin for error is just getting razor thin.
Right.
Like, you can spend decades building a brand, and in a single tweet, everything can fall apart if it's not perfectly calculated.
Yeah, it really, the bar is set very high, and the customer expectations are higher. I equate it to almost like, clean tablecloths at a restaurant. I mean, if you don't have clean tablecloths at a restaurant, it doesn't matter how good your food are, or how good your food is, how good the service is, people aren't going to transact. And so
it's a great analogy.
It's like you said, just one little thing being off, the customers just don't have tolerance for that today. So it takes it takes a lot of effort to work on that.
Well, that goes back to what you said earlier. Things are getting a lot more competitive. People are flooding digital like crazy. Like, customers don't have, they have options. They have more options than they know what to do with.
That's right.
So, you make one little mistake and it's on to the next one. Not even a second thought.
Yep. And we transact in fractions of seconds. I mean, if you're on a mobile device, you're on the go, and you want to, participate with a brand or consume a product, if that doesn't work right there in that instance or at that moment, the customer's out, and then they're probably not coming back because they had a bad experience. And so it's the expectations are very high from customers today.
Yeah, absolutely. So that should about do it for our first segment. We'll pick up in about 3 minutes here with segment 2. Thank you.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children.
After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What? Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Can you help a newborn baby in need? Sometimes the blessing of birth becomes complicated and perilous. Miracle Babies is there to help. Miracle Babies helps moms and dads give their all to their struggling little baby, but still need more. When you give to Miracle Babies, you help them give more. More skin-to-skin care, breast milk, and love. Go to miraclebabies.org and give right now. Be their miracle.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Welcome back, marketers. You're listening to This Week in Marketing, powered by WS Radio and hosted by the American Marketing Association San Diego chapter. In the studio today, I've got Aaron Cuker of Cuker Agency. And just one more announcement to get through. I want to remind everyone to grab your tickets to the Video Marketing SIG on January 22nd. That'll be held at the UCSD Extension at 6256 Greenwich Drive, room 118 in San Diego. For AMA members, it's free, and for guests and future members, it is $10 entry. Now, diving right back into our topic here, we're talking about building a digital brand. And we wrapped up the first segment talking about kind of how the process of branding has changed over the past decade. And so just diving into the next segment, I want to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of building a brand. And Aaron, I'm curious, what is your take on what are some of the most day one mistakes you see people make when building a brand these days? You know, people who don't think they need to outsource to an agency.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we talk about biggest mistakes that businesses make that I typically see, yes, part of it is, you know, if they try to kind of go cheap on the brand build out and get something that's kind of not at the level of you know, what consumer expectations are today. I mean, that's part of it, but I would roll back even further, and I would start with sort of traditional sort of business analysis and talk about competition. That I think it is more and more challenging today to go into, even with a digitally led campaign, going into a market that has a lot of competition. If that's a mature marketplace, the price points might be very competitive. That's an area where I would say to avoid. Even though digital has the immense power to get in front of, you know, lots and lots of people, if it's a mature marketplace with lots of competition, that's a very, very difficult fight to win, and it's a lot easier and more fun to go into an area where it may be a newer product. There might be less competition. You have to make sure that there's demand for that product, and then you know. So that's I would say step one. Now, going into building a brand, you know, the storytelling element is just so critical. I mean, that is what is going to attract your tribe of customers, and that's going to turn customers into customers for life. And so they're going to stay with you because of your mission, because of your story, because of how you came about. So beginning by crafting that and then producing and delivering that in a high quality way. I mean, that's what customers expect today. If you go, you know, sort of you know, take half measures on building your brand, there's too many options out there. I mean, people can transact with others.
So I'm interested to get your take. In your own words, what would you say the role of storytelling is in building a brand?
Yeah, it's really the glue that keeps your customers in, and it would be very difficult to build a brand and build a business and transact with people one time and then never transact again. And so, again, that story is sort of the glue that keeps your customers connected to your brand. Today, in today's digital era, customers are looking for that story and what's behind the brand, that purpose, which I love building so much. That's really my passion in brand building. I love, you know, pulling those stories out of companies and then packaging and delivering them in a very authentic way to the founder's vision and what they want to achieve. And that's what customers are looking for today. I mean, you know, rewind 15, 20 years ago, I mean, customers were just sort of operating off of manufactured marketing messages, you know, got milk, or, you know, I mean, it's just like, what do these things mean? I mean, these were sort of catchy taglines that a copywriter or an artist came up with, and you put all over the place, and customers sort of accept that at face value. Well, that passive customer has been replaced by an active and engaged customer in today's digital era, and they want to know more than just the tagline. They want to know, you know, what is the story and mission behind the brand? What are the actions of the founders and the leadership in the company? What are the actions of the brand, and what are they doing to make positive impact? So, so storytelling is really sort of this thread that is without all of the different digital touch points, which is why it's so important to kind of nail that story up front.
Yeah, absolutely. It really gives people the emotional pull to go to a brand. I actually saw a pretty interesting stat the other day. It was a study put on by the Harvard Business School. They said, I can't remember the exact number. I know it was over 90. It was more than 90% of purchasing decisions are made emotionally.
Right.
And I think the storytelling is what really pulls those people in and gets those emotional reactions from people.
That's right.
Awesome. So let's say you're working with a brand new company. They come to you, Aaron, I have a brand new business. I need to build a brand. What would you say the first initial steps are?
Well, again, gauging the marketplace. I mean, I think that it really is something that, over the last decade, especially, 10 years ago, it was easier to kind of get in, build a brand, use digital. Social was in its early phase. And so there are a lot of brands that kind of came in at that point and leveraged sort of underutilized channels where there was less competition. Today, again, I think the first step is what's the competition in the marketplace? What's the audience size? What's the market demand? That it really is step one, because it is getting more competitive and it takes more to compete. So, beginning there, and then as we get into looking at building a brand, once they engage with a branding agency and get into it, at least for us, one of our first steps is to establish the vision, voice, and values. And it's a simple exercise, and sit down and we talk and we figure out what is the vision, voice, and values in a very simple format of how you want people to see your company and how you want people to process information about your company.
Cool. So just to backtrack a hair, how would you go about gauging the market? What are some of the main tools you use? Do you do like keyword research, audience analysis?
Yeah, all of the above. I mean, I think you have to look at the brands in the space. You have to look at social. You have to look, go through search. Use tools like Alexa. Go through and do your analysis to see, what is the competition. You can hire market research firms to try to understand how much that competition is spending into marketing, what you might have to go up against, and really just doing your homework. I mean, there's business research consultants that you can have come in and do analysis for you. But I think it's so important to spend more time doing your homework so you really know what the competition looks like. Have your game plan before you go in and compete.
Yeah, and just to circle back to what we talked about in segment one, I think a really interesting thing about doing research and competitive analysis over the past decade is we now have an ability to get down to the nuts and bolts of audience sentiment. See what people are saying on social media, see what the general feel is towards a certain company, industry, or product, or what you name it.
That's right.
I think that's one of the most interesting things to come out of the last decade.
That's right. And that should be a factor in the analysis. I mean, if there are existing products in market that you want to enter, but the customer sentiment is, if they're not satisfied with the products that are available, that might be an opportunity where you can come in, and while there is some competition, if you can deliver a 10x better experience and really kind of focus in on your customer experience, on your product, to get that nailed at a much higher rate than the current competition's operating, I mean, that can be a strategy.
Very cool. Yeah, and you can use the sentiment analysis, identify the weak points and then capitalize on that.
Yes.
Very cool. So, okay, so moving forward, say we've done our competitive analysis, we have a direction. I want to look at this from a content creation perspective. Where would you say the best place to start with a new brand would be?
So the best place to start is with yourself as a brand. One of the things that we look for in a company, again, as I mentioned, we have to have a company with a good product that's going to be able to deliver a good customer experience. They have to be able to produce and have capacity to scale. Variety of other factors, but one of the things I always look for is a brand evangelist. Okay, so you cannot have a faceless brand anymore. There needs to be a individual in the company that is going to be the evangelist for the brand, that's going to be sort of the figurehead of the spokesperson. In today's digital era, in the world of social media, there has to be a face and a name and a personality associated with the brand. And so when we talk about content, I think it's first establishing that brand evangelist, and then really thinking sort of introspectively of what that person might want to consume in terms of marketing content, and then you're going to attract your sort of tribe, and your audience is going to be, they're going to want to follow that person, and they're going to want to be associated with that person. And so building content to what that brand evangelist and what that tribe of people might be looking for is a great first step.
I love that. Yeah, I've always heard the quote that people at the end of the day like to buy from other people. They don't like to buy from brands.
That's right.
And that's really interesting perspective there. Yeah, so you really got to get a face behind the brand.
Yes.
And so I'm curious to get your take. We got about 50 seconds left in this segment. What are the most important duties of content early on in building a brand?
Well, early on is about getting the product out there, but in an aspirational way. So I think, now having, gone through, I guess, about 16, 17 years into my marketing career, I have seen a lot of transition, but there's sort of this universal truth that marketing needs to show the idealized version of your customer's life with that product integrated into it. And I think that early on, that's important. And so if you're selling, a product that's going to be associated with a consumer that's going to go running, well, you need to show that consumer running in, this sort of bigger, larger than life, sort of sublime setting that is very aspirational and attainable to what that customer might be looking for.
Very cool. Yeah, we'll pick up with this right when we're back here in about 3 minutes.
Can you imagine a world without children? A world where children don't play, or dream, or imagine?
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we're working every day to find cures for diseases that strike down children, because we can't imagine a world without children. Can you?
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. To learn how you can help, log on to our website, stjude.org.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McCullough brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcCullough.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McCulloughe. ChristopherMcCullough.com.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Kinja Dixon was crowned the #1 sales executive through hard work, deep thinking, and the revelation of universal talk laws. He now wants to share these lessons with you. Universal talk laws are what you need to know and use in business and at home to have successful and effective conversations. Kinja Dixon shares his wisdom, action plans, and wealth. Each book comes with a chance to win $10,000. Find Universal Talk Laws at KinjaDixon.com.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Welcome back, marketers. You're listening to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the American Marketing Association San Diego chapter, and of course, powered by WS Radio. In the studio today, I got Aaron Cuker of Cuker Agency, and we are talking all about growing a digital brand. And we wrapped up our last segment talking about the duties of content in building a brand. And Aaron, I want to get into kind of the next phase of that question is, how do the duties of content vary based on the industry?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think the duties of content vary based on industry and each brand. I think each brand and the mission that company's trying to achieve brings a different set of how all these pieces work together. You know, marketing is kind of like this big recipe where all these things need to work together, and if you put them all together and do it right, then you get this kind of you get the product that you want at the end. So as far as different companies, I'll give some examples. So we have a consumer-facing brand that we're building up their online, their e-commerce, their sales going through retail, and when we use content, we push that content out through social, we push it out through email marketing, we push it out on their website, and that content is a big awareness vehicle and exposure vehicle. I mean, we're leveraging their kind of mission and content to get in front of new people that have never heard of the brand before, and the way that content structures draws them in. It has the right story, and it has everything kind of ladders up to the story, the mission, the pillars of the brand. And so, content in that consumer brand is sort of a sort of a leader in the recipe. It's bringing people into the brand, whereas another client that's more a business-to-business service, they're out and they're doing more sort of in-person, trade shows, networking, PR, to get exposure to people. And then once those potential customers come in and interact with those people, then they're exposed to the content. So the content's sort of a second or an assist, and they go and the customers kind of review the content, and that adds credibility. It really sculpts the perception of at what level that service is operating. So again, I mean, it really depends on the brand, the client, the industry, where it's sort of placed in the recipe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something I've noticed as a content creator in comparison to B2B and B2C, the B2C, you're going direct to a consumer, as the name implies, and B2B, the content strategy I found is a lot more layered. You can't just appeal to the end user. You got to appeal to CEOs, CFOs, even administrative assistants, who are doing the research on, potential solutions.
Right.
And, it takes a lot more in-depth thinking. You got to look at it from all different angles. Okay, so diving back to digital branding, I want to talk about social media. And, we all have noticed that it's just seen a huge evolution over the past decade. It's really changed from just this, person-to-person thing to how businesses promote themselves and get in front of a wider audience. So, Aaron, I'm curious to get your take. Where would you say social media fits into the branding process today in 2020?
Yeah, I think social media has to be front of mind at each step in the branding process. So whether you're doing research, whether you're doing, developing your brand story, your vision, your pillars, whether you're producing your image, sort of your mood board, your art direction. I mean, it needs to be front of mind that that this content is going to go out on social media. Are you going to be able to produce enough content to meet the demands of the sort of volume of content that social media requires that's going to match what you're looking for? So it has to really be sort of front of mind at each step of the process. When you're doing your analysis and research, looking at the competition on social, looking at what other brands are doing on social, looking at what those following and engagement levels are, and finding role models out there. And that's, I think, important part of it too is you might find a great role model that's in a different category that it's something that you might want to emulate or aspire to. that's an important part of the research process.
Very cool. So I want to get your take. You've been in the marketing game. You said 17 years.
Right.
And we're seeing all of these as 2020 starts. We're seeing all these articles, biggest takeaways from the 2010s. What would you say, looking at it from social media? What would you say the biggest takeaways you found throughout the decade are?
Well, I think social is it's just been this huge game changer. I think when the internet first got moving and websites were more out there, just information started moving fast. I feel like information started moving at sort of 10 times the rate of what it used to. And then when social media came in and exploded, that speed went another 10 times faster. And so I think the speed of information has been a huge factor. I think that in this sort of giant sea of noise that is social media, quality of content is required. I think quality stands out, and anything that's just below that bar just sort of gets washed out in the noise. So I think quality over quantity is still, quality content is still king. And then here, sort of as we enter the roaring 20s, as I'm told this decade is going to be, I think competition is just a big factor. I think that the sort of the heyday of being first to market and the first to really sort of exploit social media to, get your brand out in front of an audience. I mean, that those dynamics are changing because of competition.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to get your take. What are some of the biggest emerging channels right now in social? I was writing an article on. It was actually, I can honestly say, it was the first time I felt like an old person trying to understand the young people. I was trying to research TikTok, and I still have no idea how it really works.
Right.
And I'm curious to get your take. What are some of the big channels you're seeing emerging into the roaring 20s?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's new, there's going to be new platforms like TikTok. I mean, that's a big one. People go and they watch, people doing their dances. And I think it's sort of addicting to sit there and watch and consume that content. I think that there's going to be more things like that, more sort of. Kind of one-off, sort of one-trick ponies, if you will, that are going to attract audience and attention. A lot of our focus is still with sort of Instagram and Facebook, and when we talk about social, these are, Facebook is one of the heaviest trafficked sites on the internet. They sort of compete with Google for the top visited site in the world. And so, still the lion's share of the activity is with those channels, and they're rapidly adapting. So, Facebook and Instagram, and I think we can expect to see more transactions happening there. I think we can expect to see their feature set get deeper and more rich. I think that the how they've added more and more video and interactivity with the successful launch of stories. I think there's still so much evolution that's happening with those channels. I think there's still going to be, at least in the early part of the decade, I think the things that are happening there are going to have big impact and influence on marketers.
Well, it seems like the biggest thing is most of it's going to be video.
I would say video is going to play a huge factor. I think that the transaction is going to be how we're transacting is going to change. I think when Instagram, does a full scale rollout of the sort of buy now from Instagram without leaving the platform, I think that's going to change things. I think when Facebook, how they started handling transactions, I think that's going to be a big game changer. And I also think that something we haven't talked about yet is regulation. I think as regulation comes into play and CCPA goes into effect, and I think there's going to be more regulation to come, that also is going to really shape the landscape. We're going to have some big changes coming our way with that.
Well, that segues perfectly into my next question. I want to talk about influencer marketing. It kind of seems like influencer marketing, I know the regulations are starting to come, but it kind of seems like the Wild West in a lot of ways. I don't know if you saw those Fire Festival documentaries that came out at the beginning of last year. It kind of seemed like that was the defining moment where people started raising their eyebrows just when they hear the term Instagram influencer or just influencer in general. It kind of seems like now there's this stigma attached to influencers and, using them just in a blatant way to get your brand out there. I'm curious, in your experience, how have you noticed this shift over the past years? It seemed like for the longest time, influencer marketing was just like this magic key to, the marketing mix.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think influencer requires doing effective influencer marketing requires faith and sort of getting it. Influencer really is an up funnel strategy. It's not like sort of Google text ads or nowadays even sort of social advertising where you put $1 in, you can expect to make a couple dollars back. You see that direct return. It's a little bit different with influencer. Influencer is more of an up funnel strategy, and the power of influencer is that you get awareness. And so if you are if you are a company or a marketer that believes in up funnel and believes in that awareness marketing, and you understand that, and you can operate in that mode, and you understand how social works and how how to connect with the right influencers that are right for your product. It is sort of a magic ticket. You can get broad awareness with a very meaningful audience, and the difference between if we really think about what an influencer is doing when they're posting content, it's kind of like an ad. But the difference is that ad comes with a lot of, just influence or, sort of they are inspiring their audience to buy versus sort of a normal ad that you might see on a digital ad in a website or a ad in a magazine or something like that. That's more of a sort of a passive ad. This ad comes with a lot of force behind it. That's saying, this is what I buy and consume. This is what I believe in. If you want to be like me, this is what you should buy.
Got it. All right, well, that should do it for segment 3. It seems like we're always wrapping up when things are getting really interesting. But we'll be back in about 3 minutes with the final segment.
Can you help a newborn baby in need? Sometimes the blessing of birth becomes complicated and perilous. Miracle Babies is there to help. Miracle Babies helps moms and dads give their all to their struggling little baby, but still need more. When you give to Miracle Babies, you help them give more. More skin-to-skin care, breast milk, and love. Go to miraclebabies.org and give right now. Be their miracle.
On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Nowadays, internet devices are an integral part of your home. Everyone in your family has a smartphone, tablet, or a computer. Life is easier knowing that all your devices are secured and your family can surf the internet carefree. ESET Multi-Device Security Pack does just that. One license for all your devices. With ESET, it's simple to stay protected and save money. Enjoy safer technology with ESET Multi-Device Security Pack at ESET.com. That's ESET.com.
You may have heard me brag about Progressive Medical Center and just how much they've helped me with my health. And Dr. Goley, one thing that you've helped so many people with is migraines.
Unfortunately, there are millions and millions of Americans who are suffering with migraines and headaches, and they're debilitating because it affects the quality of their life, and they cannot function properly. At Progressive, we get the root cause because we understand that migraines could be caused by nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalances, believe it or not, delayed food sensitivities. And once we determine what the real reason is, we put a plan of action together with medication that we get them off slowly, and we put them on an all-natural approach, and the results are amazing.
Incredible. I mean, there's so many people that can say they don't live their lives with migraines anymore thanks to Progressive Medical Center.
And that's what's exciting and rewarding to us as physicians, because we help our patients take control of their health, and that's why they're living well.
Why don't you get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today? Don't live in pain. Don't have migraines anymore. Just go to their website, progressivemedicalcenter.com.
This is your life. Live it well.
This is Bill Gruber with BizVid Communications, a Southern California video production leader. We've been honored to sponsor, produce, write, and host many of the fine programs on WS Radio over the years. So we understand how important the internet and your website exposure are. As video producers, we know the tricks and secrets to incorporate video to increase your search engine optimization and business success. Visit bizvidcommunications.com to see what we can do for you. BIZVID communications.com.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
And welcome back, marketers. You're listening to another episode of This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the American Marketing Association's San Diego chapter and powered by WS Radio. In the studio today, I've got Aaron Cuker of Cuker Agency, and we are talking all about building a digital brand. And Aaron, we kicked off last segment talking about influencer marketing and kind of how that paradigm has shifted over the past few years, and really the key to using influencers to building a brand. Now, I want to get your take. Everyone knows that social influencers can be extremely valuable in a brand, but like we talked about earlier, it's all about picking the right influencers and just really approaching the process. Now, how do you advise new companies to approach influencer marketing? I feel like there's a lot of companies who don't know much about it, and they're kind of thinking, oh, let's just look at this follower count. Oh, he's got a huge follower count. Let's pay him a ton of money to get our brand out there.
Right.
And that's really not the best way to do it these days. I'm interested to get your take on it.
Right. So, like I mentioned, influencers is really this up funnel strategy that's used to get broad awareness, but you can get that within a targeted audience, and you get this sort of heavy influential push from the people that are promoting your product within your targeted audience. But you have to be working with somebody that understands it. Like, just hiring somebody that's younger, kind of intern level, just because they know how to use social media or use it regularly, that doesn't mean that they're going to be good at a good influencer marketing person. You can't just kind of pull somebody off the streets or and just kind of throw them out there. You need to be working with somebody who really understands influencer, understands the subtleties and the nuances, because if you are someone who is not as adept at influencer, don't understand social media as well, then there are nuances to the channel, there's details, there's subtlety that someone who's an expert is going to understand. So you need to rely on them. So first step is work with someone who is an expert, who has done this before. Then at that point, I think that person's going to be working with you to understand what's your target audience, what's your sort of aspirational person that's out there evangelizing your brand that represents, values and the things that you want to be associated with your brand. And so that's sort of the second step, is really, identifying that person who you want out there, and who you want them promoting your brand. And then from there, the expert's going to help you with the rest. So that, I think, is maybe a good starting point.
Mm-hmm. And I think another thing is, I feel like influencer marketing shouldn't just be like a one-off post. Like, it needs to be clear that the influencer is actually devoted to your brand messaging and really supports it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think that a common mistake would be to sort of go out there and do sort of a one-time blitz of, we're going to get in front of these influencers and put the product there and then we're done. And I think that customers, I think there's a big difference between an influencer posting a product once and saying, oh, this is so great, versus them continually to incorporate that in their marketing and in their promotion. I like influencer as a long-term strategy, looking at it as identifying these people that their mission and vision and what they're all about and what they're doing in the world really aligns with you closely as a brand. And then you develop a relationship with them, and they're out there promoting you nonstop. Now, another way to kind of think about it is this person's kind of like a salesperson, a business developer for you. But the difference is they've got 1 million followers on Instagram that are really, that are not only engaged with this person, but they're inspired by that person. They're going to go take similar actions because they sort of look up to and want to be like that person. So it's, so yes, I really think that influencer as a long-term strategy is a much better way to look at it and grow it.
Mm-hmm. So, Aaron, I want to shift gears a little bit to our final segment here on, I want to talk about educating clients, especially ones working on a razor-thin budget. We talked about earlier, there's a lot of clients that just they don't understand marketing, and they've got champagne dreams on a beer budget. How do you go about educating clients on the importance of building their brand and selling the elements and what's important in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think step one is really to work and identify where the client's at and look at their goals and their budget and make sure those match. And if they are coming to you and they've got if you're a marketer and they're coming to you and they have a beer budget and they're expecting champagne and all kinds of other things and they just don't have the budget for that, it's better to just be honest up front and level set expectations. And if there's just not a match there, you're better off spending your time doing something else. So step one is identifying really sort of the goals and the budget and make sure those two things match. Now, having a small budget isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's just where they're at. So I think giving the marketing or setting up the marketing program so it fits within that small budget and doing the activities that they can afford and do just a great job of those things. It might be more limited. If they've got a limited budget, they're going to have a limited marketing program. But do a great job with that limited budget, and then the business is going to grow. And then the marketing budget should grow. And then the business should grow again. And the marketing budget should grow again. So it's not bad necessarily to have a lean budget. It just means that you need a marketing program that's tailored to that budget.
So my next question, now I know this is totally not a one-size-fits-all question, but how would you go about advising a client on a razor-thin budget how to allocate their marketing spend? Maybe if you have like an example of a scenario in the past.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think that recipe, it really changes per client and per product. But, one example might be that if somebody comes in, they've got a budget, and it's not a huge one. It's not what it should be to really compete in their space, but they want to get started. You might sit down and say, okay, well, let's do a social program and let's make sure that your website is in better shape. You might start with sort of a limited set of activities that is going to help that person help that company be better in those activities. And then, once you get really good with those, then you grow, you see more sales, and then that gives you opportunity to expand. Again, I think that channel mix, it really is, that's tailored per client. But what I would say is that, in today's world where there's 1,000 channels out there that you can activate through digital, you really just have to start with, I wouldn't bite off more than you can chew. I would start with just doing a great job with what a company can afford, and then grow and expand from there.
Very cool. So I want to get your take on, now I know you don't have a crystal ball or anything in front of you, but I'm interested to get your predictions on how do you think the process of building a brand is going to look in 5, 10, 20 years down the road?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's kind of fun to think about because I think technology changes have just changed that so much. And that was really, I mean, when I kind of, moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, being the forefront of digital, I mean, digital was sort of this afterthought still in brand building. But I just fundamentally knew going forward that everything would change and digital would be, would be first and this would be at the forefront. And so, looking forward on how that's going to change, I think that how we transact is going to evolve. I think there's going to be a lot more sort of things are going to even faster. There's going to be instantaneous transaction. There's going to be, I think in the marketing channels that are still more sort of something that you consume and digest, I think those are going to become more transactional. And I think, but one of the biggest things that we're going to see come in this decade is regulation in the industry. I think with ADA expanding into digital a little over a year ago, with CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act this year, which goes into effect mid-year. All these, I mean, we've been in a largely unregulated industry for a long time. That's all going to change, and so. I would be getting in and growing your brand now because it's, fast forward 5 years from now, it's going to be more expensive. There's going to be more regulation. There's going to be more hoops to jump through. There's going to be more competition. It is going to get more expensive to grow your brand through digital channels.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, that should do it for our show today. Thanks everyone for listening. And we'll be back next week. Thank you.
Can you imagine a world without children? A world where children don't play, or dream, or imagine?
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we're working every day to find cures for diseases that strike down children. Because we can't imagine a world without children. Can you?
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. To learn how you can help, log on to our website, stjude.org.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Looking to be a successful entrepreneur? The virtual assistant industry continues to be a top choice for those looking to start their own business. The problem can be how to become a virtual assistant. Many turn to the Bible of the VA industry, the book Virtual Assistant, the series, and it's the perfect guide for office managers, executive assistants, and other administrative professionals looking to make the transition from employee to successful business owner. Go to vatheseries.com to get your copy today.
Hi, Scale listener. This is David Finkel, co-host with Jeff Hoffman of Scale Your Business. I wanted to let you know that our newest book, Scale, was just released, and to encourage you to get your copy. The book will give you 7 proven principles to grow your business and get your life back. Scale will help you work less by getting your business to produce more. Get your copy online or at your local bookseller. For more information, visit us online at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com.